can start reading.
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the view of a sole terrestrial life, or a restricted transient passage in the material universe, or possibly there may be living beings in other planets, an acceptance of man's mortality and a passive endurance of it, or an active dealing with a limited personal or collective life, and life aims are the only choice possible. The one high and reasonable course for the individual human being, unless indeed he is satisfied with pursuing his personal purposes or somehow living his life until it passes out of him, is to study the laws of the becoming and take the best advantage of them to realize rationally or intuitionally, inwardly, or in the dynamism of life, its potentialities in himself or for himself, or in or for the race of which he is a member. His business is to make the most of such actualities as exist, and to seize on or to advance towards the highest possibilities that can be developed here or are in the making. Only mankind as a whole can do this with entire effects by the by the mass of individual and collective action in the process of time, in the evolution of the race experience. But the individual man can help towards it in his own limits, can do all these things for himself to a certain extent in the brief space of life allotted to him. But especially his thought and action can be a contribution towards the present intellectual, moral, and vital welfare and the future progress of the race. He is capable of a certain nobility of being. An acceptance of his inevitable and only individual annihilation does not preclude him from making a high use of his will, high use of the will and thought which have been developed in him, or from directing them to great ends which shall or may be worked out by humanity. Even the temporary character of the collective being of humanity does not so very much matter, except in the most materialist view of the existence. For so long as the universal becoming takes the form of a human body and mind, the thought, the will, it has the will it has developed in its human creature will work itself out, and to follow that intelligently is the natural law and best rule of human life. Humanity and its welfare and progress during its persistence on Earth provide the largest field and the natural limits for the terrestrial aim of our being. The superior persistence of the race and the greatness and importance of the collective life should determine the nature and scope of our ideals. But if the progress or welfare of humanity be excluded as not our business or as a delusion, the individual is there. To achieve his greatest possible perfection or make the most of his life in whatever way his natural demands will then be life's significance.
Yeah. He is discussing the materialistic view and what are the possibilities there in that view. Okay, so he has already spoken of this elsewhere in Light Divine, and here he is going into more details. So we'll have a look at what he's saying. I suggest that we get this summary of what he's saying, then we'll go into each sentence. So I'm just saying, I'm reading out the summary. Okay. Then we will go into each sentence. It's quite a big para. In this theory of the exclusive material life being solely real, is there any significance or purpose to worldly life? This is what he is discussing. Suppose someone says that the physical world is only reality, can that individual have any purpose in life or any significance? This is what he is discussing. Okay? So, it's possible. And he has said earlier, he has also said that if someone is materialistic and doesn't believe in God, it doesn't mean to say that he can't have a nice character. Okay? He can be very sensitive, he can be very loving to others, he can make something of his own life, he can invent things. Okay? Those who are, he can invent a mobile, he can invent a computer, he can invent something else. So some purpose is possible. And what is those purposes? That's what he's discussing. Okay? So significance for an individual or the collectivity in the material world. Is there any significance at all? That's what is discussing. I come back to my summary. The individual has only one brief life, and he has to accept his mortality and make do with the best he can with it. What choices does he have? So, the first one, okay, the ordinary man enjoys life with whatever nature and world can give him. He is a common man who doesn't believe in anything, and he enjoys whatever nature can give him and the world can give him, his own nature as well as the world. He can lead a life of egoistic hedonism. Okay? His life has no value for mankind. This is a normal man. He is living for himself, and his life has no value at all for the rest of humanity. Second choice, if he is more developed and conscious, he can try to develop himself in body, life, and mind. So he is more developed and he says that okay, God may not be there, but I can improve my understanding, I can improve my aesthetic feelings in the vital, I can also improve my health. So can you hear me now? My
Yes, sir.
can you hear me now? My
Yes,
power,
yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
yeah, my power failed. That's what. Okay.
Mm.
So I let the computer came back. Okay. So now we can continue. So I was reading the summary, and first he said someone who lives. He is discussing the materialistic concept. So someone who is materialistic and doesn't believe in God or anything, and he lives for himself, his life has no value except for himself. And his value is only to enjoy life as much as he can. But now he takes another example of a man who is more developed. Okay, he can think, okay, there's no purpose in life, but I can develop my mind. I can educate myself. I can know more of history. I can know more of science. I'll develop my mind. I can also develop my aesthetic sensibilities. I can even try and improve my health, okay, through medicine. So these are all some purposes in life is there for him. This is what he is discussing. If he is, there will be other cases also. Okay? If he is more developed and conscious, he can try to develop himself in body, life, and mind as best as he can and leave the world a bit better than when he entered it. How? By advancing the, suppose he discovers a solution for a disease. Okay, then he's left the world a little better. Or suppose he discovers a new instrument, so that he is slightly more idealistic. He still doesn't believe in anything except the physical world. So these ideas, thoughts, and discoveries, inventions can benefit mankind. He may be transient, but his deeds and achievements can live longer in the history of mankind. Now he takes up the third. Suppose the individual is more of an idealist than even the second person. The first person is no idealist at all, he lives only for himself. The second person is slightly idealistic and he does something for himself, but mankind benefits. Now he is coming to third option. If the individual is an idealist with noble ideas of service to mankind, he can so live his life. He may be mortal, but mankind is longer lived and can continue its existence and continue his existence with the individual's noble contributions, maybe physically, maybe emotionally, through art and intellectuality. He may even be a philosopher. Okay? He may plant a, I'm giving examples. He may plant a fruit tree for posterity to enjoy. He may make scientific discoveries or invent gadgets to benefit mankind. So all these are the third type of human being who doesn't believe in anything except the physical world. This is the maximum that life on earth can aim at. So these three possibilities he has given you. Okay. Now we'll read the para and you will understand what he's saying. He is discussing the materialist man, what he can do for mankind. Okay. In the ordinary view of a sole terrestrial life or a restricted transient passage in the material universe, for possibly there may be thinking living beings in other planets. So he is talking about only the physical world on our planet, okay, of a sole terrestrial life. Okay. Note that carefully, sole terrestrial life, because he's telling you why. There may be other planets where human beings are there and their ideas may be different. So he is not discussing those. Okay. But possibly there may be thinking living beings in other planets. An acceptance of man's mortality that he has to accept because there is mortal, and a passive endurance of it or an active dealing with a limited personal or collective life and life aims are the only choice possible. And we have discussed those choices, so now you can understand what he's saying. So, the man is a materialist, but he is doing something he can do only for himself, or he can do something for himself, but mankind will benefit, or he can do for mankind directly. Okay, so these are the three choices. The one high and reasonable course for the individual human being, unless indeed he is satisfied with pursuing his personal purposes or somehow living his life until it passes out of him, the one high and reasonable course for a materialist man is to study the laws of the becoming and take the best advantage of them to realize rationally or intuitionally, inwardly, or in the dynamism of life, okay, his potentialities in himself and for himself, or in or for the race of which he is a member. So, we have got the summary. Now we'll see what several language is. Okay, so the highest possible course for a material man is to study the laws of the becoming. What are the laws of becoming? The laws of the physical world. It can be the laws of thinking, it can be the laws of the desire world, or it can be the laws of medicine for the body. Okay, is to study the laws of the becoming and take the best advantage of them to realize rationally or intuitively, generally admitting that even if a person is a materialist, intuition can sometimes work in him, okay, or intuitively, inwardly, or in the dynamism of life. Inwardly, he could become a philosopher or a psychiatrist, or if in the dynamism of life, he could be a scientist, or he could be a bridge builder, or a computer expert, discovering new software, okay? So many possibilities. Its potentialities in himself or for himself, okay? What are the potentialities in him? He can do it selfishly for himself or in and for the race, okay? He can do it for the race of which he is a member. His business is to make the most of such actualities as exist and to seize on them or to advance towards the highest possibilities that can be developed here or are in the making. So, whatever is already here, he can develop, or we can are in the process of being done, that also he can participate. Okay? Only mankind as a whole can do this with entire effect by the mass of individual and collective action in the process of time, in the evolution of the race experience. But the individual man can help towards it in his own limits, can do all these things for himself to a certain extent in the brief life, in the brief space of life allotted to him. What is the brief space of life? 100 years maximum. Okay. Some people do live 120, 130, but he is just giving an average. The individual can do all these things for himself to a certain extent in the brief space of life allotted to him. But especially his thought and action can be a contribution towards the present intellectual, moral, and vital welfare and the future progress of the race. That's what we discussed also. He can be a philosopher, and philosophers also can be materialists, or he can be a moral. He may give some ideas, new ideas for living, and vital welfare. Vital welfare is very clearly vital and physical welfare. If you discover a new software, for instance, or you can discover a different type of mobile phone, okay, and the future progress of the race. He is capable of a certain nobility of being, an acceptance of his inevitable and early individual annihilation. Okay, he may die early, and individual annihilation, his individual death, does not preclude him from making a high use of the will and thought which have been developed in him, and from directing them to great ends which shall or may be worked out by humanity. As I said, he could do so many things. Even at the physical level, if he plants fruit trees, okay, future humanity will benefit. He may be a materialist, but he is doing that. Okay, or he may build a bridge, which will be of immense benefit to mankind afterwards. That's what we will discuss. Okay, he may die early, but he can leave the results of his labors for mankind. That's what we say. Even the temporary character of the collective being of humanity does not so very much matter, except in the most materialistic view of existence. So, even if it is materialistic, it doesn't matter because he has done something for mankind. Okay? So, even if you are a materialist, you can leave some benefit for the mankind. Okay? It shall be worked out by humanity. Even the temporary character of the collective being of humanity does not so very much matter. Oh, what's he saying? He's saying the individual will die in a short time, but the collectivity will be slightly more long living, but even that may not be. Okay? Even the temporary character of the collective being of humanity does not so very much matter. It's possible that a whole race may be wiped out. Okay? He's saying it doesn't matter so much because then the rest of humanity will benefit from what he's saying, except in the most materialistic view of existence. For so long as the universal becoming takes the form of human body and mind, the thought, the will it has developed in its human creature will work itself out, and to follow that intelligently is a natural law and best rule of human life. What someone has discovered today will be of benefit to others who are coming, and they can make best use of that which that man has left for mankind. That's what Swinburne mentioned. Humanity and its welfare and progress during its persistence on earth provide the largest field and the natural limits for the terrestrial aim of our being. He is talking only of the terrestrial man. Huh? So even he can be of some use to mankind. That's what Swinburne said. The superior persistence of the race and the greatness and importance of the collective life should determine the nature and scope of our ideals. So, even if you are a materialist, if you are an idealist, then you should think of something for the collective life. That's what said this. Your ideal should not be a personal ideal only for yourself. It can be more generalized for humanity, not selfish, but more humanitarian. But if the progress or welfare of humanity be excluded as not our business or as a delusion, the individual is there. So even if you don't think of the collectivity, the individual is still there. To achieve his greatest possible perfection or to make the most of his life in whatever way his nature demands will then be life significance. So many different types of purpose he has given for the materialist world. Okay, either he can do something for mankind or he can leave behind him some result which everybody will benefit from. So Shraddha is so generous in his views. He is not saying that a materialistic life is useless. He is not saying that. Even there can be some benefit for the mankind and also for himself. He may have developed himself, okay, but some at least temporarily maybe, but it's still some use for the individual. Now we come back to the next para, which he is saying the supraterrestrial view. So we'll read that. Okay. So the first one was read by Soki. The second one, who will read? Archana, can you read?
Yes, Rangad, I'll read.
Go ahead, read. The supraterrestrial.
The supraterrestrial view admits the reality of the material cosmos and it accepts the temporary duration of Earth and human life as the first fact we have to start from. But it adds to it a perception of other worlds or planes of existence which have an eternal or at least a more permanent duration. It perceives behind the mortality of the bodily life of man the immortality of the soul within him. A belief in the immortality, the eternal persistence of the individual human spirit apart from the body is the keyword of this conception of life. That of itself necessitates its other belief in higher planes of existence than the material or terrestrial. Since for a disembodied spirit, there can be no abiding place in a world whose every operation depends upon some play of force, whether spiritual, mental, vital, or material, in and with the forms of matter. There arises from this view of things the idea that the true home of man is beyond and that the earth life is in some way or other only an episode of his immortality or a deviation from a celestial and spiritual into a material existence.
Yeah. So, a small para, but he is discussing the third view, the third aim of life, the third theory of life. So, if you remember, the first one was the supracosmic. That is the one who thinks that the physical world is unreal and only the supracosmic view is the right one. Okay? The second view was the materialistic view. Only the physical world is real. The first one, the physical world is not real, only Brahman is real. Second one, the physical world is only reality. Now the third one, the supraterrestrial view. Which is the supraterrestrial view? The third one. That means to say, you will read what he's saying. Okay? The supraterrestrial view admits the reality of the material cosmos. The physical world is real and the Brahman consciousness also is real. And it accepts the temporary duration of earth and human life as a first fact we have to start from. The physical world is real, okay? Not unreal. This is Shankaran view, Shankara view. Okay? He can be a representative of that. But it adds to it a perception of other worlds or planes of existence which have an eternal or at least a more permanent duration. So the physical world has got a duration, but that duration may be temporary. Okay? For the individual, it is definitely temporary, and for the collective also, it may be temporary, the duration of all. But there are other planes of consciousness, like the higher mind, eleven mind, intuitive mind, overmind. All these planes of consciousness are more permanent. Okay? More permanent. So, it perceives behind the mortality of the bodily life of man, the immortality of the soul within him. There is a Supraterrestrial view, then man has got a body-mind life which is temporary, but he also has got a soul, and that soul can go into these more permanent worlds. That's what he's saying. It perceives behind the mortality of the bodily life of man the immortality of the soul within him. A belief in the immortality, the eternal persistence of the individual human spirit apart from the body, is a key word of this conception of life. The individual human being has a soul which is eternal. There is a supraterrestrial view. That of itself necessitates its other belief in higher planes of existence than the material or terrestrial. Okay. So, why is Shiva saying material or terrestrial? Okay. Material, which would mean that maybe there are other planets. Terrestrial belongs to our physical world. But higher planes of existence than the material, he is not talking only of our Earth. He is talking also of material means in other planets. Okay, that's why he's saying material or terrestrial. See how accurate he is. You may wonder why he's saying material or terrestrial, because the same thing, it is not the same thing. Terrestrial is the physical, our physical world, but the material could be elsewhere. Okay. Yeah. Kiran is giving a message that she can't hear. Anyway, what to do? So, material terrestrial, since for a disembodied spirit, there can be no abiding place in a world whose very operation depends upon some play of force, whether spiritual, mental, vital, or material, in and with the forms of matter. There arises from this view of things the idea that the true home of man is beyond, and that the earth life is in some way or other only an episode of his immortality or a deviation from a celestial and spiritual into a material existence. Now, what are the implications of what he's saying? We will see. So, just to summarize, okay, all the four theories. First theory, the Buddhistic theory and the Mayavada theory. Only the Brahman is real, the physical world is unreal, it doesn't even exist. Okay, number one. Number two, the materialistic world. The materialistic world, the world exists and is the only existence. There is no other world except the material world. And that material world can be elsewhere also, in some other planets. Okay, that's also possible. And is some purpose possible there? Some purpose? Just they're saying, yes, there can be a purpose. First, there can be no purpose at all. That's selfish man. Second, that man may do something for himself selfishly, but it may benefit mankind afterwards. Okay? Like the discovery of something in science or the discovery of something in anything. It can even be medicine, it can be even archaeology, it can be anything. Because then humanity will benefit. And the third one is, as I said, leave something permanent in the physical world for us. This is a materialistic view. Now the third view is the physical world is real, but there are also other worlds which are equally real, okay, or even more real perhaps. Okay? So, and there the soul of man is immortal. The body, mind, life of man is not immortal, will pass away, but the soul will live forever. Okay? And the real home of the soul is above, not in the physical world. This is the third view. Now he is saying that because we have to distinguish between what Sri Aurobindo's view is and the other view. The fourth view is Sri Aurobindo's own view that the physical world, there is definitely a purpose, and there is definitely, you can't say that the physical world is only a transitory place where you train yourself. It is not only that. The third view, the supraterrestrial view, says the only purpose for the physical world is to train yourself, train the soul to live and realize its potentiality. But Sridhar is saying that is not the only purpose for the physical world. There is an evolution, and in that evolution, the divine is trying to manifest himself fully in this physical world. It's an adventure, and he is trying to reveal himself slowly through evolution. That's a fourth stage. Okay, so now we have a clear indication of all the four theories. So we can, what is the time? 33. We have got 7 minutes. So we can read the third paragraph. But what then is the character, the origin, and the end of this deviation? So, Shilpa, can you read?
Yes, Rangadhar.
Go ahead.
But what then is the character, the origin, and the end of this deviation? There is first the idea of certain religions, long persistent but now greatly shaken or discredited, that man is a being primarily created as a material living body upon earth, into which a newly born divine soul is breathed, or else with which it is associated by the fiat of an almighty creator. A solitary episode, this life is his own, is one opportunity from which he departs to a world of eternal bliss or to a world of eternal misery, either according as the general or preponderant balance of his act is good or evil, or according as he accepts or rejects, knows or ignores a particular creed, mode of worship, divine mediator, or else according to the arbitrary predestined caprice of his creator. But that is the supramentarial theory of life in its least rational form of questionable creed or dogma. Taking the idea of the creation of a soul by the physical birth as our starting point, we may still suppose that by a natural law common to all, the rest of the existence has to be pursued beyond in a superterrestrial plane when the soul has shaken off from its original matrix of matter, like a butterfly escaped from the chrysalis and disporting itself in the air on its light and colored wings. Or we may suppose preferably a preterrestrial existence of the soul, a fall of descent into matter and recession into celestial being. If we admit the soul's pre-existence, there is no reason to exclude this last possibility as an occasional spiritual occurrence. A being belonging to another plane or existence may conceivably assume for some purpose the human body and nature. But this is not likely to be the universal principle of earth existence or a sufficient rationale for the creation of the material universe.
This is quite a complex para, and definitely we'll have to discuss it tomorrow more in detail. But I'm just telling you, he's discussing the religions, okay? The Christian religion and also maybe the Islamic religion and other religions also, where they feel that the soul is created and comes down to the physical world and again goes up. They believe in other worlds. All the religions believe in other worlds as real, and the physical world also is real. But their views are all different. So that's what he's discussing. So we have 3 minutes. What I'll do is I'll read the summary, and tomorrow we'll go into detail and see very interesting details he is bringing out. And details are very interesting here. So we'll have to see what he says. So in summary, but then what is the nature and the origin and the culmination of this deviation into the physical world of the human soul? If the human soul is real, why on earth should it come down into the physical world? Okay, what is the purpose? That's what he's asking. Okay, if is the home, the real home of the soul is the higher worlds why is it coming down to the physical world at all? Okay, that's what he's discussing. Here, there are two possibilities. The first case is when the soul does not have a prenatal existence. The second case is when the soul has an existence before entering the physical world. In other words, before it comes down to the physical world, the soul is created by the divine. Okay? The second one is not created. It is always there and it comes down to the physical world. There are two possibilities in this theory. Okay? So, the second case when the soul has an existence before entering into the physical world. In the first case, as in the Christian religion, the human soul is created by God by a fiat. Fiat means an order, caprice or will, when a physical body is prepared by nature. This idea, though quite discredited now, is that the soul has one single life on earth and at the end is either sent to heaven, eternal enjoyment, or to hell, eternal punishment or suffering, according to its deeds in the physical world. There is the European idea of karma or its beliefs. This theory is the least rational and raises many legitimate questions with no credible answers. And those answers and questions we will discuss tomorrow. But if the soul has a prenatal existence, that means before it is born, unlike the Christian theory, the soul has existed right from the beginning. Okay, that's what he's discussing. If the soul has a prenatal existence, then the world can be seen as a field of, number one, a fall. That's a Christian theory. Or a descent, the Vedantic Indian idea. Okay? But in this case, the soul's sojourn on earth and subsequent exit does not really explain the necessity of the creation of the physical world. Okay? Why was the world created at all? That's what he's saying. This is the summary I have read out of what he's discussing here. It's all the religious theories. Okay? So, they believe in the physical world's reality. They believe in the higher world's reality. There is a divine and there is also a soul. But the soul comes down here only in one life and goes back again. So why should it come down here at all? And what is the purpose? Yes. That we'll take up tomorrow. It's 8:40 now, so we'll take up tomorrow.